Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I was just looking at the monitor on the camera, which Kevin turned around so we could look at ourselves, your favorite thing to look at. And I thought, oh, look at that. We've managed to do it. We finally managed to not have either of us wearing blue, but it looks gray in the monitor, but it's actually blue. Mine's gray, but yours.
Well, nobody knows for sure. I just see dark colors. I don't choose. I don't discriminate.
His vision is based on movement.
No, it's like Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park, Kevin.
Kevin just ran to the bathroom. I'm sure this is going to go great.
So here we are. We just talked with the linebackers and the tight ends, and a litany of players. So both coaches, James Laurinaitis and Keenan Bailey, and I'm going to try to do all of these correctly. It's America's favorite game show. Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Payton Pierce, Garrett Stover, Eli Lee, TJ Alford, Riley Pettijohn, all three of the freshmen. Tight ends, we got, and there's a bunch of them, Jelani Thurman, Will Kacmarek, Bennett Christian, Max Klare, and Nate Roberts. Did I miss anybody?
I believe that was it. I think it was 7 linebackers and 5 tight ends.
Tell me what I won. Tell me.
The right to talk about what we just
All right.
heard.
Okay, that's very fair enough. That's
Pretty good.
Everybody else wins with that. So
Sometimes.
Tom, let's talk about these coaches. We'll start with the linebackers rather. I want to talk about James Laurinaitis. I was with James Laurinaitis. You were with Keenan Bailey. So one of the things, you're talking about Sonny Styles, who is the leader of the team, basically. And something that Laurinaitis said, basically, if you're a linebacker at Ohio State, you have to be a captain. If you're not a captain or if you're not progressing to become a captain, then you're kind of wasting your time because you have to talk to everybody on the defense, so you have to be part of the entire team. And he said he'd been pounding the table for Sonny Styles to be a linebacker basically since he got to Ohio State. And
James Laurinaitis and Mark Givler.
Yes. So you see that where it's like, when he was a recruit, he's like a 6'4" safety, and it's like, yeah, that's great. It's not a realistic thing, So Jim Knowles is always talking about how the progression, they wanted him at safety so that he could eventually progress to linebacker, and it's like, okay, I mean, it worked, but you could have also just started out at linebacker. But he's here now, senior leader, high expectations, and I did not get to talk with Sonny at all because we're split between 3 tables, but. Were you over with Sonny?
I was, yeah. I was over at the table with Sonny, and he was asked about James Laurinaitis saying that about him, and he said, I appreciate him saying that, but, we have lots of leaders. This is not, and it's
just like a leader.
Exactly the kind of thing that a leader would say. When you talk to guys who are like renowned as leaders in this building over the years, they're never like, you know what? I am the best. Like you don't ever hear that from the guys who people talk about fondly in here. And I think Sonny Styles is definitely someone who fits into that category. One thing I didn't get a chance to ask him that I wanted to was, what has your dad said to you about hey, this is going to be your last season at Ohio State, and it's Lorenzo's last season at Ohio State. Now, their dad, Lorenzo Styles Sr., was a linebacker back in the 90s, so he has already gone through the whole process where you look back, you're like, wow, that went fast.
And he left as a junior.
He left as a junior because he went early. He went to was he the one who went to the Browns or
he went to the Falcons?
He went to the Falcons.
Third or fourth round.
Yeah, there were two linebackers. Him and Craig Powell. I couldn't remember which one went to which, but yeah, it was. He's exactly the kind of guy that fits the profile of the leader. He's been here now for 4 years, which seems absolutely impossible to believe, but he's been here 4 years. And, he said he's had the benefit of learning from other guys who were great leaders in the past. And he said, sometimes leadership means you're kind of telling people, here's what you're doing wrong, and let's fix that. But he said sometimes it's just recognizing when someone needs you to put an arm around them and tell them hey, you're doing okay, it's okay. He said that was something that when he was young, his first year, Cam Babb did that. And Cam Babb is, another guy who was sort of renowned in this building as just this great leader and really, really respected figure. But he said Jack Sawyer did that as well. And, he was on the receiving end of that as a young guy when it's am I ready for this? Am I built for this kind of, when you're in that oh boy, this is harder than I thought it would be. Now he's kind of through all that, and now he's on the other end where he's kind of being the guy that'd be like, you know what? It may not feel like it right now, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and he was fortunate to basically grow up with Jack Sawyer, who was like best friends with Lorenzo Styles Jr. So he had basically a big brother on the team before his big brother joined the team.
Yeah, before he had a literal big brother on the team.
So everybody's learning from his example now, and he learned from Cody Simon's example. He learned from Tommy Eichenberg. So they're passing it down, paying it forward, and talking with Riley Pettijohn, who is now a true freshman middle linebacker, who is having to take all of this in and learn the defense, and not just learn the defense, but learn it as a middle linebacker. So I was asking him, what's a day in the life of a true freshman middle linebacker, like off the field? He's like, well, you wake up and you come here and you watch film, and then you eat and you watch film, then you go to class and you come back and you watch film. Like, what kind of film are you watching? He's like, just me making mistakes and then fixing them. Mm-hmm. And you're studying, you're always in the playbook and learning that. And it's interesting talking to the freshman linebackers who are basically just want to show that they can play and want to be able to play, but special teams, whatever, like it's making a mark, being called upon, just being a part of this team, because they all got to see they got to see the last two playoff games in person, like on the sideline, and they're all of the mind of like, we need to do that. It's like, well, how does that happen? It doesn't just happen. It happens here every day, day by day, brick by brick. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch how that pays dividends down the road, just that experience for these freshmen.
Yeah, it feels like they got a up-close look where it's not just, okay, I've heard, like I've seen, I've lived to a certain degree what it takes to get there. And you figure that's going to give them at least a little bit of a head start, where it's not just, sometimes you have the teams where the guys who play the least are the ones that are celebrating the hardest, and these are guys who've had to they have they don't have the sense of entitlement because they weren't an active part of that team, but they've also seen the hard work that goes into getting to that point, and I'm sure they want to be the ones on the banners up there, holding the trophy, rather than being like, oh, and I was also there, and I got a hat, it was very nice. But that's certainly a little bit of a head start for them in terms of what, understanding what it takes to get to where you want to get to.
James, speaking of hats, James Laurinaitis had a very nice Rose Bowl hat.
I looked at that hat and I thought, where did you get that?
Yeah, that was a nice one, right? Yeah.
That's the brick one. When you buy
you got to buy the brick for that one. That was like $100, $150 hat then.
Oh, well.
But you get it, and you don't even get to keep the brick.
That explains why it's nice.
Yes, it is a nice hat though. Talked with Arvell Reese, who is this year's middle linebacker, and somebody asked him, how much last year was just, instinct versus knowledge. He's like, actually, I knew the playbook. Like, surprised, I knew what I was doing out there, because he's a true sophomore playing middle linebacker for the first time at Ohio State, and plays it very well, and was out there quite a bit. And it wasn't just one of those things like, just go get the football. Like, he's quite aware of what he was doing, and getting to learn behind Cody Simon and learning next to Cody Simon. That's another thing that is going to help him. And this is just his second year as a full-time linebacker at Ohio State. So, he's being the leader that the middle linebacker needs, but is also being helped along the way by Sonny Styles.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you think of this guy who's a second-year player, and he's being thrown into this role, and was in that this is his third year. He was as a second-year player. As a second-year player being put in that spot, and who are the younger, the guys behind the guys that we haven't talked about yet? Those are two second-year guys too, and Payton Pierce and Garrett Stover, and those are guys who, sort of had that similar first year. Reese missed time with injury, but Stover played a lot. Stover and Pierce played a bunch on special teams, but they are learning and getting up to speed and making sure they're ready. And because now they are one snap away potentially from, Payton Pierce, if he's the backup Mike, if something happens to Arvell Reese, well, guess what? Congratulations, you're now the starting Mike. And that's a lot of pressure on a second-year guy. So, I think that goes into why is Riley Pettijohn watching film, going to class, watching film, and then watching some more film. Well, it's because a year from now, maybe he's the one in that role. So, but this is, this kind of goes back to something we always talk about this in the context of the wide receiver room in terms of like, what does it take to be a great Ohio State wide receiver? And going down through the Ohio State wide receivers through the ages, from Michael Thomas and those guys on down to to Marvin Harrison and now Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka and all those guys. It's kind of the same thing in the linebacker room, where it's like, okay, there have been some really good linebackers come through here, and you've got some linebackers who are going to go down as like incredible leaders and incredible veteran players here. You've seen what you've been able to learn from them, but you've also seen what they had to do to get there. So now you just got to, if you want to get there, this is what you got to do.
Yeah, some housekeeping for you, Tom. Riley Pettijohn came in at 215 pounds, now checking in at 227 with a goal of 230. I bet he makes it. And TJ Alford came in at 218. He's 230 now. And Alford, who is from Florida, also talked about how a lot of the people in Florida say Ohio State doesn't play Florida players. And he's like, he's talking about Ryan Shazier, he's talking about Jeremiah Smith. He's like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Name one player from Florida who made an impact for Ohio State last year.
There's quite a litany, as all of you guys know, that Florida players do quite well at Ohio State. And the idea that they don't play Florida players is one of the most insane things I've heard over the last decade.
Yeah. Outside of Ohio, I don't know that there's a state that has produced more guys who have played consistently for Ohio State over the years than Florida. I mean, there's a bunch that are sort of in the running across the South and maybe the West Coast. But yeah, boy, there has not been a grand conspiracy to keep players from Florida off of the field. But yeah, I mean, you got to remember who he was talking to there. Florida man. So you're going to hear some wild stuff when you're talking to Florida man.
Yes. Don't talk to people when they're doing their bath salts and whatnot.
Don't talk to people when they're from Florida.
So the tight ends, Keenan Bailey, tell us everything. Don't leave out a single detail.
I sure will. He was asked first about Max Klare, because Max Klare is a new and exciting Purdue transfer, obviously. Someone who had 51 catches last year for Purdue, something like that. He
under this year.
Likely, yes. He said, and we'll get to Max Klare's thoughts on that in a little bit, but he said Max Klare's picked things up really quickly, which is what you would sort of expect. He said he's kind of a different type of tight end and different skill set maybe in some ways than some of the guys they have. If you think about Will Kacmarek, what were we hearing about Will Kacmarek last year? Best blocker in the country, okay? Well, what are you hearing about Max LeBlanc? Max Klare, incredible receiver, route running, perimeter blocking, really polished as a receiver. And he, Keenan Bailey was asked about, so you've got all these wide receivers, and so it's got to be hard for you to get the ball to the tight ends. Like, how do you communicate that to your guys? And he said, really, it's kind of the opposite. It makes it easier to get to your guys because when you're doubling, if you're Max Klare at Purdue and you're the best receiver on the team and the best pass target on the team, guess what? You're going to get doubled sometimes. You're not getting doubled as a tight end. When was the last time an Ohio State tight end got doubled?
Boy, that's a good Fred Puggett, Ricky Dudley.
One weird play in the 2022 game with Garrett Stover.
There you go.
Michigan game. But anyway.
Who knew?
I said Marvin Harrison was our top wide receiver 2 years ago. Who was the second on the team in terms of targets and receptions? Garrett Stover. So, it's there. It's there for you.
Emeka Egbuka was hurt that year, but
well, listen. He said Lathan Ransom has been trying to take credit for like being like, hey, this guy's pretty good. You should look at him. And he goes, Caleb Downs had identified him as well. He actually said that he has dinner with like the safeties weekly Fridays just to ask them about during the season. Like, so what do you see about the opposing tight ends? Well, just anyone I should know about, basically. So. And he said Sam Wiglusz, former Ohio State walk-on who went down to Ohio University as a wide receiver, had a really nice career down in Athens, said he was the one who told him about Will Kacmarek. So, and
does Keenan Bailey do anything on his own?
He's got good sources. That's what he does. He has He said this is the deepest tight end room they've had. They're coming in. They lost guys last year, and they have 4 guys coming in who have played in the college football playoff already. Like, that's pretty impressive.
And you're adding Max LeBlanc.
Yes, and you're adding a guy at the head of that line potentially. Yeah. Said. He's told his guys Brian Hartland's going to put the best 11 guys in the field, so it's up to you whether you're one of the best 11 guys in the field.
And when I say adding Max LeBlanc, I mean like the redshirt freshman.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Like he can play now.
Yes,
Like he's better than he was. Yeah. And you mentioned Max Klare. Like it's the deepest room. Has to be the deepest tight end room in the country. And they're adding to it with Nate Roberts and eventually Brody Lennon this summer.
And talking to them about the fact that it's the deepest, but also there's a path to the field here for you. They played when Will Kacmarek went down with that broken arm at Oregon real early in that game. Mm-hmm. He said they went tempo, and like 2 plays later, they were in 14 personnel on the goal line. They had 4 tight ends on the field, and Will Kacmarek was on the sideline. And there were guys who'd never been in before in that situation exactly. And it's like, congratulations. Well, here you go. You're on the road at Oregon in a primetime nationally televised game. Like, good luck. And hope you've been studying your playbook and all that kind of stuff. But that really does show, like, hey, there is a path to the play. If you're ready to go, there is a path to the field for you.
I asked Jelani Thurman about that. It's like, you've got so many guys, but you all showed last year that you will play. And he's like, we all have different skill sets as well, but they're all trying to round out their skill sets to be available to be called on at any point. And one of the more amazing things about this is a really close room. It feels like, for one, it's crowded. Maybe that's why. There's just they need more room in the room.
More seats.
You'd think that it would be the opposite, like, I can't stand this guy, like, whatever.
Add some chairs in the transfer portal.
There you go. But they're all really close. They all get along. They do everything together. And I was asking Nate Roberts about that. Like, what's it like coming into a very close-knit room? He's like, they bring me along, and they make sure that I'm set for the next day on, like, the plays, and I've got my sheets. Like, they make sure that he's going to be set for the next day. And they talk about him, like, what'd you do today? Here's what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's just interesting to see, like, this room is basically brothers, like making sure everybody is ready, everybody can excel, and they all have their roles, but they also know, like, I will play. Keenan Bailey has shown me that I will play if I'm able.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was very, very interesting was Jelani Thurman, who's someone we get asked about all the time, because he was someone who came in and it was like the athleticism, and everyone kind of went, oh boy, and then he has not been, the tight end number 1 really at any point in his career. And they have always talked about sort of off-field stuff with him and just sort of maturity and that, that kind of stuff. He said, off the charts right now. Night and day, I think was the phrase he used. More mature, work ethic. They really have challenged him to learn, like, all the tight end positions really inside and out, like not just Y, which is where you're sort of split out, but like H, where you're in the sort of thankless Patrick Gerd, Mitch Rossi kind of role, like, all that kind of stuff. It was a way that we have not heard him talk about Jelani Thurman, I don't know, ever. So it was like, okay, that's one of those things you're sort of waiting to hear, like, okay, when is this going to happen? Maybe, the light may have come on there. So that was I think an encouraging sign if you're looking for him.
Well, like, Jelani to me he's always one of the most upbeat guys, which tells you a lot about him. But he's also, we talk about the blueprint of the guy that hits the portal. It's the guy that gets passed by, or by a younger guy, or by transfers, and like that's never been anything. Like, he's always just, I'm at Ohio State. I'm going to give everything I've got. He saw Bennett Christian take some of his playing time last year. I think that's just motivation for this year. But also, again, as long as you're working, as long as you're progressing, you're going to play, because Keenan Bailey has shown that.
A couple other quick things from Max Klare. Said he played quarterback until his junior year of high school.
Okay.
Really only. So when you look at him and you're like, why was this guy so low, like lowly rated and not someone who was on Ohio State's radar really coming out of high school? That's why, really very late in the process. And he said it was just kind of like there was a quarterback battle and your coach was like, I think you'd make a pretty good tight end. So credit to his high school coach there. He said also when he was talking to Keenan Bailey, just going through the process of, the recruitment in the portal and all that kind of stuff, he said Keenan hit on things that I wanted to hear and some things I didn't. And, wanted to He came because came to Ohio State because he wanted to keep developing, blocking, running routes. He has a vision of where he wants to be. This place can get him there. And when there was a sort of follow-up. So when he showed you some things you didn't want to see, I said just showed him things he can improve on. Not, it wasn't just like, oh, you're amazing.
Right.
You're going to be the number one pick nationally.
I can't do anything with you. You're perfect.
You're perfect. It's going to be.
I get that a lot.
I just hope to learn from you one day. No, it was very much a, we can get you to where you want to get to, but and that was part of it. That was kind of also part of his response to. So you had 51 receptions at Purdue last year. I don't know that any Ohio State tight end has ever had 51 receptions. Maybe like John Frank, maybe. But
I think.
But if so, that's a little back in the day at this point. So, why would you come here? It's like, well, this is where you can get to, to your goals,
right.
And to get to where you want to be.
What is your goal? 55 catches or 8 years in the NFL type of thing, and get that second and third contract. Mm-hmm. What's a more long-term and better goal for you? So, yeah, that's interesting because I'm not expecting 51 catches or when you've got this receiver depth, and it's always interesting to where that second tight end versus that slot receiver and how that battle ensues, because it's whoever's better for that particular play is going to play, and how much can Max Klare be the tight end on the line of scrimmage as well, so that the 11 personnel doesn't factor in for him, because he's the one, or the 12 personnel doesn't factor because he's not being taken off the field anyway because I'm the one, but also you've got to block as well as Will Kacmarek or Jelani Thurman. So it's really, really competitive room that has a ton of talent that can do a bunch of different things. And you don't ever, I don't know if Keenan Bailey's ever asked you, how do you keep these guys happy? Because we've heard answers to that question before from other coaches, but he's done it.
Well, I think the answer to that question is, if you're good enough, you're going to play. And you've seen 4 tight ends on the field at the same time, 4 or 5 tight ends on the field in a game. The answer is, look in front of you. Behold, all that is in front of you in the film room. Look at all the tight ends on the field and the different guys on the field in these various situations. This could be you.
Unless you're from Florida.
I've heard that, yes. One more thing that I meant to get to. Sonny Styles was asked what it means to him to be one of the 3 guys named in Iron Buckeye this spring. It was him, it was Austin Searveld, and Jeremiah Smith. He said, he kind of laughed. He's like, well, the national championship's still the most meaningful thing to me. But, he said, the Iron Buckeye means more to you the more you've been here. That, that the more you've seen what it takes to get that award. And he said it's not just you're the strongest and the fastest, so here you go. It's showing up on time every day, bringing energy every day. It's a lot. It's all the soft factor stuff that coaches talk about a bunch. That's this is the stuff that actually matters. Why would it matter if I show up with energy? If I lift the weight, I lift the weight. No, that there's all this stuff. It's kind of the when are you going to play as a wide receiver? It's when your blocking's good enough. It's I don't want to block. I want to catch footballs and score touchdowns. Well, no, they're looking for all this little stuff, because the little stuff is the difference between you go out in the first round of the playoff and you maybe get to spend a month traveling around America and win something shiny at the end.
It's interesting because the longer you've been here, the more guys you've seen who have done it. But I think even more meaningful, all of the guys you've seen who haven't. And these are great players, and they weren't able to do it. So I think it creates this level of certainly accomplishment and pride in your job. But I think I'm complete on all of my notes. Tom, you got anything else? Are we good?
No, I think we're. I think we're good. I think we went through everything we have.
All right, and I want to thank you all. Before you go, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you have not, of course. And you can always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where you can subscribe now for just $4.99 for your first month. Check us out there. We've got a lot going on. Spring football, as you know, recruiting is picking up in a big way. A bunch of commits that have happened and are about to happen. So you can find out about all of that stuff there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.